The Scythians, also known as Scythe, Saka, Saki, Saka, Sai, Iskuzai, or Askuzai, were a large group of Iranian Eurasian nomads who were mentioned by the literate peoples surrounding them as inhabiting large areas in the central Eurasian steppes from about the 9th century BC until about the 1st century BC. The Scythian languages belong to the eastern branch of the Iranian languages. The classical Scythians, known to ancient Greek historians, were located in the northern Black Sea and Caucasus region. Other Scythian groups documented by Assyrian, Achaemenid and Chinese sources show that they also existed in Central Asia, where they were referred to as the Iskuzai, Askuzai, Saka, and Sai, respectively. The relationships between the peoples living in these widely separated regions remains unclear. The term Scythian is used by modern scholars in an archaeological context for finds perceived to display attributes of the Scytho-Siberian culture, usually without implying an ethnic or linguistic connotation. The term Scythic may also be used in a similar way, to describe a special phase that followed the widespread diffusion of mounted nomadism, characterized by the presence of special weapons, horse gear, and animal art in the form of metal plaques. Their westernmost territories during the Iron Age were known to classical Greek sources as Scythia. The Scythians were among the earliest peoples to master mounted warfare. In the 8th century BC they possibly raided Zhou China. Soon after they expanded westwards and dislodged the Cimmerians from power on the Pontic steppe. At their peak, Scythians came to dominate the entire steppe zone, stretching from the Carpathian Mountains in the west to central China and the South Siberia in the east, creating what has been referred to as the First Central Asian Nomadic Empire. Based in what is modern-day Ukraine, southern European Russia, and Crimea, the Western Scythians were ruled by a wealthy class known as the Royal Scythes. The Scythians established and controlled a vast trade network connecting Greece, Persia, India and China, perhaps contributing to the contemporary flourishing of those civilizations. Settled metalworkers made portable, decorative objects for the Scythians. These objects survive mainly in metal, forming a distinctive Scythian art. In the 7th century BC the Scythians crossed the Caucasus and frequently raided the Middle East along with the Cimmerians, playing an important role in the political developments of the region. After losing control over media, the Scythians continued intervening in Middle Eastern affairs, playing a leading role in the destruction of the Assyrian Empire and the sack of Nineveh in 612 BC. The Scythians subsequently engaged in frequent conflicts with the Achaemenid Empire. The Western Scythians suffered a major defeat against Macedonia in the 4th century BC, and were subsequently gradually conquered by the Sarmatians, a related Iranian people from Central Asia. The eastern Scythians of the Asian steppe were attacked by the Yuezhi, Wusun and Xiongnu in the 2nd century BC, prompting many of them to migrate into South Asia, where they became known as Indo-Scythians. At some point, perhaps as late as the 3rd century AD after the demise of the Han dynasty and the Xiongnu, eastern Scythians crossed the Pamir Mountains and settled in the western Tarim Basin, where the Scythian Khotanese and Tumxhuqis languages are attested in Brahma scripture from the 10th and 11th centuries AD. In Eastern Europe, by the early medieval ages, the Scythians and their closely related Sarmatians were eventually assimilated and absorbed by the Proto-Slavic population of the region. Scythians kept herds of horses, cattle, and sheep, lived in tent-covered wagons, and fought with bows and arrows on horseback. They developed a rich culture characterized by opulent tombs, fine metalwork, and a brilliant art style. Names. Sulamirsky views the histories of Herodotus as the most important literary source relating to ancient Scythes. Herodotus provides a depiction that can be related to the results of archaeological research, but apparently knew little of the eastern part of Scythia. He did say that the ancient Persians called all the Scythes Sigma Alpha Kappa Alpha Iota. Their principal tribe, the royal Scythes, ruled the vast lands occupied by the nation as a whole, calling themselves Sigma Kappa Omega Lambda Omicron Tau Omicron Iota. Oswald Cimmeraini devotes a thorough discussion to the etymologies of ancient ethnic words for the Scythians in his work, For Old Iranian Ethnic Names. Scythian, Scudra, Sogdian, Saka. In it, the names of Herodotus and the names of his title, except Saka, as well as many other words for Scythian, such as Assyrian Naskas and Greek Scuds, descend from *skewed, an ancient Indo-European root meaning propel, shoot. *scud is the zero grade, that is, a variant in which the E is not present. The restored Scythian name is *scuda, which among the Pontic or Royal Scythians became *sculla, in which the D has been regularly replaced by an L. Saka, on the other hand, Cimmeraini relates to an Iranian verbal root, sak-go, roam, and hypothesizes that the Achaemenids used nomad to refer to the northern tribes, rather than their endonym. The name does appear somewhat further east than the Achaemenid Empire, as the Chinese knew the Asian Scythians as Sai. Whether they adopted the Achaemenid name, or Saka, came to be an endonym, it is not clear. The modern region of Sistan in eastern Iran and southern Afghanistan takes its name from the classical Sakistan. Sakistan was not the only province of Scythian origin on the eastern margin of the Persian Empire. According to Cimmeraini, Sogdiana was named from the Scuda form. Starting from the names of the province given in Old Persian inscriptions, Sugda and Saguda, and the knowledge derived from Middle Sogdian that Old Persian GD applied to Sogdian was pronounced as voice fricatives, gamma delta. Cimmeraini arrives at *su gamma delta as an Old Sogdian endonym, applying sound changes apparent in other Sogdian words and inherent in Indo-European. He traces the development of *su gamma delta from Scuda, archer, as follows. Scuda greater than *sucuda by anaptixus greater than *sucu delta a greater than *suc delta a greater than *su gamma delta a. Origins. Literary evidence. The Scythians first appeared in the historical record in the 8th century BC. Herodotus reported 3 contradictory versions as to the origins of the Scythians, but placed greatest faith in this version. There is also another different story, now to be related, in which I am more inclined to put faith than in any other. It is that the wandering Scythians once dwelt in Asia, and there warred with the Massagetae. But with ill success, they therefore quitted their homes, crossed the Araxes, and entered the land of Samaria. Accounts by Herodotus of Scythian origins has been discounted recently, although his accounts of Scythian raiding activities contemporary to his writings have been deemed more reliable. Moreover, the term Scythian, like Cimmerians, was used to refer to a variety of groups from the Black Sea to southern Siberia and Central Asia. They were not a specific people, but rather variety of peoples, referred to at variety of times in history, and in several places, none of which was their original homeland. The Bible includes a single reference to Scythians in Colossians chapter 3 verse 11. Immediately after mentioning barbarians, possibly as an extreme example of a barbarian. Archaeology. Modern interpretation of historical, archaeological and anthropological evidence has proposed 2 broad hypotheses. The first, formerly more espoused by Soviet and then Russian researchers, roughly followed Herodotus' account, holding that the Scythians were an Eastern Iranian group who arrived from Inner Asia, i.e., from the area of Turkestan and western Siberia. An alternative view explains the origin of the Scythian cultural complex to have emerged from local groups of the timber grave culture. This second theory is supported by anthropological evidence, which has found that Scythian skulls are similar to preceding findings from the timber grave culture, indistinct from those of the Central Asian Saka. Others have further stressed that Scythian was a very broad term used by both ancient and modern scholars to describe a whole host of otherwise unrelated peoples sharing only certain similarities in lifestyle, cultural practices and language. The first millennium BC ushered a period of unprecedented cultural and economic connectivity amongst disparate and wide-ranging communities. A mobile, broadly similar lifestyle would have facilitated contacts amongst disparate ethnic groupings along the expansive Eurasian steppe from the Danube to Manchuria, leading to many cultural similarities. From the viewpoint of Greek and Persian ancient observers, they were all lumped together under the Etic category, Scythians. History. Classical antiquity. Herodotus provides the first detailed description of the Scythians. He classes the Cimmerians as a distinct autochthonous tribe, expelled by the Scythians from the northern Black Sea coast. Herodotus also states that the Scythians consisted of the Orcitae, Caesaroi, Traspians, and Paralata or Royal Scythians. For Herodotus, the Scythians were outlandish barbarians living north of the Black Sea in what are now Moldova, Ukraine and Crimea. Michael Kulikovsky, Rome's Gothic Wars from the 3rd century to Alaric, pg. 14. Modern scholars have surmised that the sack of the western Zhou capital Haojing in 770 BC might have been connected to a Scythian raid from the Altai before their westward expansion. In 512 BC, when King Darius the Great of Persia attacked the Scythians, he allegedly penetrated into their land after crossing the Danube. Herodotus relates that the nomadic Scythians frustrated the Persian army by letting it march through the entire country without an engagement. According to Herodotus, Darius in this manner came as far as the Volga River. During the 5th to 3rd centuries BC, the Scythians evidently prospered. When Herodotus wrote his histories in the 5th century BC, Greeks distinguished Scythia Minor, in present-day Romania and Bulgaria, from a Greater Scythia that extended eastwards for a 20-day ride from the Danube River, across the steppes of today's East Ukraine to the lower Don Basin. The Don, then known as Tanais, has served as a major trading route ever since. The Scythians apparently obtained their wealth from their control over the slave trade from the north to Greece through the Greek Black Sea colonial ports of Olbia, Chersonesos, Cimmerian Bosphorus, and Gorgippia. They also grew grain, and shipped wheat, flocks, and cheese to Greece. Strabo reports that King Attis united under his power the Scythian tribes living between the Boeotian marshes and the Danube. His westward expansion brought him into conflict with Philip II of Macedon, who took military action against the Scythians in 339 BC. Attis died in battle, and his empire disintegrated. In the aftermath of this defeat, the Celts seem to have displaced the Scythians from the Balkans, while in South Russia, a kindred tribe, the Sarmatians, gradually overwhelmed them. In 329 BC, Philip's son, Alexander the Great, came into conflict with the Scythians at the Battle of Jaxartes. A Scythian army sought to take revenge against the Macedonians for the death of Attis, as they pushed the borders of their empire north and east, and to take advantage of a revolt by the local Sogdian satrap. However, the Scythian army was defeated by Alexander at the Battle of Jaxartes. Alexander did not intend to subdue the nomads. He wanted to go to the south where a far more serious crisis demanded his attention. He could do so now without loss of face, and in order to make the outcome acceptable to the Sakai, he released the Scythian prisoners of war without ransom in order to broker a peace agreement. This policy was successful, and the Scythians no longer harassed Alexander's empire. By the time of Strabo's account, the Crimean Scythians had created a new kingdom extending from the Lower Dnieper to the Crimea. The kings Scylaurus and Pallarus waged wars with Mithridates the Great for control of the Crimean littoral, including Chersonesos, Taurica and the Cimmerian Bosphorus. Their capital city, Scythian Neapolis, stood on the outskirts of modern Simferopol. The Goths destroyed it later, in the mid-3rd century AD. Sakas and Indo-Scythians for Indo-Scythians and other Central and Southern Asian nomadic groups. See Late Antiquity and Late Antiquity. The notion of a Scythian ethnicity grew more vague, and outsiders might dub any people inhabiting the Pontic Caspian steppe as Scythians, regardless of their language. Thus, Priscus, a Byzantine emissary to Attila, repeatedly referred to the latter's followers as Scythians. But Eunuppus, Claudius Claudianus and Olympiodorus usually mean Goths when they write Scythians. The Goths had displaced the Sarmatians in the 2nd century from most areas near the Roman frontier, and by early medieval times, the early Slavs marginalized Eastern Iranian dialects in Eastern Europe as they assimilated and absorbed the Iranian ethnic groups in the region. The Turkic migration assimilated the Saka linguistically in Central Asia.